This is the first video in a series of videos I will make about different philosophers who argue that we live in hell. This first video is going to be about Jean-Paul Sartre. One of Sartre's most iconic quotes is, "Hell is the other." We will try to deconstruct this statement and to understand what he really means. There are two key concepts that he discusses in his essay Being and Nothingness, and that we need to isolate and to comprehend. Sartre distinguishes between being in itself and being for itself. He says that looking at an object is completely different from looking at a person. An object like a table, a chair, a spoon, is a being in itself. It has no doubt about what it is, and it is not affected by the gaze of the onlooker. The human is not a being in itself. It is a being for itself. He is not one essential thing that is unfazed by the look or the gaze of another human. He is the opposite of all that. He is a being for itself. A being for itself is not certain about what it is. It is conscious of its existence and conscious of the gaze of another human at it. To simplify things, objects are beings in themselves because they are one thing and they are not affected by how they are perceived. People are beings for themselves because they are not one thing and they are heavily influenced and affected by how they are perceived. This is a very important distinction. The human who is a being for itself is not one thing. He is free, he can be anything, and this freedom is wonderful. However, the moment he is subjected to the gaze of another human, he is perceived as something. He is judged and labeled. His total freedom is devoured. The look of another human destroys you as a being for itself and tries to transform you into a being in itself. This is the philosophical foundation of how the other represents hell. By this point, we've established that looking at objects is completely different from looking at people. When you're walking in a park and you look at benches, the grass, the birds flying around, and the trees, you don't affect any of those things because they are beings in themselves. Through your gaze over all those things, you organize this mini-world from your perspective. You're at ease and you're comfortable. But the moment you see another person, even if this person is giving you his back, you become aware that there is another competing perspective that defies your organization of this mini-world. The mini-world is no longer only yours to organize. You also become aware that there is the threat of a gaze that could at any moment be directed at you and perceive you as something. The other's mere existence, even if he doesn't look at you, disrupts your dominion over this mini-world. You have no access to his gaze over all those objects. His point of view is inaccessible to you, and this disrupts your previously calm and unchallenged mini-world. All this havoc is wrought on your world only because there is a competing perspective that could order the world according to itself, the world that has previously been yours. This is why Sartre says that the gaze of the other is alienating, because it alienates you from a world that has previously been yours and yours alone. Just as the person turns around and looks at you, you are affected even more. You become part of his world. He perceives you in the same way he perceives the bench, the tree, or the lamppost. Only you're not like those things. You are not a being in itself. You experience anxiety. You could be labeled anything, and you're not created to be labeled one thing. You strive not to do anything that might make the onlooker label you as something you wouldn't want to be labeled. It is obvious that there are certain things that we might qualify as shameful and that we wouldn't want to do in the presence of an onlooking gaze. Things like poking one's nose or scratching an itch in one's private parts. But even away from those exaggerated situations, even when we're not doing anything, we feel the weight of an onlooker's gaze. Not doing anything alone is soothing, while not doing anything in the presence of an onlooker's gaze is stressful. Sartre wrote a play called No Exit, which epitomizes his philosophical ideas about hell and the other. The play starts with three people, Garcin, Inez and Estelle, who are dead and who are sent to hell. There's a person who takes them to a room in hell, and this person looks like a human being, but he doesn't have eyelids. People have eyelids, and we blink all the time. Maybe Sartre is trying to say that we blink because we need to take short breaks from the torture of being subjected to the gazes of different people whenever we're awake. And maybe he's also saying that being affected by the gaze is something purely for humans. Other creatures are not affected by the looks and the gazes of others. Because this person who works in hell maybe is an angel or a demon or any creature that is non-human, and it doesn't have those eyelids. It doesn't need to take any breaks because it is not tortured by the gaze in the same way humans are tortured by the gaze. Back to those three people. They get to hell, they enter the room, and they are surprised because they expected hell to be different. There are no tools for physical torture, and there is nothing that indicates they are going to be physically tortured. This room looks like any other room. The only thing that sets it apart from any other room is that there are no mirrors there. We use mirrors. We use them to know who we are or what we are. Until we discover who we are or what we are through the gazes of others, and then we come back to our rooms to confirm the image that was conveyed to us by the looks and the gazes of others. Part of the suffering of man is the contradiction between freedom and determinism. The human is free because he is a being for itself. Yet the gaze of the other robs him of his freedom and tries to quantify him and to define him. At the beginning of the play, both Garcin and Estelle lie about who they were before they died. They both maintain that they were honest and that they didn't deserve to go to hell. Garcin says that he was against the war. He had convictions against the war. He was a pacifist. He ran an anti-militarist newspaper. And Estelle says that she was a good woman. She didn't marry somebody she loved, but never has she been unfaithful to him. It is interesting to see how they continue to lie even if they have already incurred the punishment for their sins. They don't want to be judged by their hellmates. Inez tells them to stop lying and to confess who they are and how they died. They cling to their lies for a bit, but they eventually succumb and confess. Garcin tells them that he was a terrible husband who used to beat his wife and to cheat on her. He was killed for desertion. Estelle confesses that she was in an extramarital relationship, that she got pregnant and that she killed her baby to avoid shame. Her lover killed himself. Inez, who hasn't lied about who she was previously, tells them that she used to live with a cousin, that she seduced his wife, he learned about their affair, and he killed them both. Estelle starts to get anxious because she needs a mirror and she can't find any mirror in that room. Inez proposes to act as her mirror, and this is a powerful image because it shows how we see ourselves in the gaze of the other. It also shows that how the other sees us is more important than how we really are, because Inez tells Estelle that she has a pimple although she doesn't have any pimples, and Estelle acts as if she did have a pimple. Inez despises Garcin. She doesn't even want to look at him. She says that he looks like a torturer. He tells her that he is not a torturer, he's just an inmate in hell, just like her. But in reality, he is a torturer through the apparatus of his gaze, just like she is his torturer. Inez tries to seduce Estelle, but Estelle doesn't fancy Inez at all. Estelle is attracted to Garcin, and she seduces Garcin. They both start to make out. But what Garcin wants from Estelle is more than the satisfaction of carnal pleasure. He was called for desertion and his comrades branded him a coward. And this is torturing him. He explains to Estelle that he didn't flee the war out of cowardice and he wants her to tell him that he is not a coward. But she tells him that it is up to him to decide that, and this is not enough. His opinion of himself is not enough. He needs to see it in the gaze of the other. This is another example of how we don't get to define who we are. We have others do it for us. Then Estelle is bothered because Garcin is not fully invested in their lustful kissing. He is thinking about whether he is or he is not a coward. And she decides to tell him that yes, he is not a coward. And then Inez starts laughing and telling Garcin that he is a coward and that Estelle is only telling him what he wants to hear. Estelle's judgment of Garcin is positive only because she wants something from him. Inez keeps telling him that Estelle is telling him what he wants to hear only because she wants to be with a man. He refuses to let Inez's words get into his mind, but deep down he thinks she might be right. So he decides to ask Estelle a direct question whether she really thinks he is not a coward. And Estelle confesses that she doesn't even understand what he has been talking about. Garcin grows furious. He starts screaming and hitting the door, screaming that he would accept any physical torture and not stay with those two women in the same room. And suddenly the door opens. He is free to leave this room. But he thinks that if he leaves the room, Inez would keep thinking that he is a coward. So he decides to stay and try to convince Inez that he is not a coward. Inez decides to keep torturing him. She keeps telling him that he is a coward and that he was killed for cowardice. He wants to get back at her, so he takes Estelle and starts kissing her ravenously. This infuriates Inez even more, and she starts laughing louder and telling him that he is a coward. Estelle can't take this situation anymore. She takes a paper knife and stabs Inez. The three of them are already dead. Inez cannot get any more dead. And they continue to torture each other for eternity. What a bleak depiction of how humans torture themselves and each other through the gazes. This explains the tranquility we feel when we enter a room and lock its door. But the world is full of others with their pain-inflicting gazes.